everyone. Turn my volume up. Coming on here today on this live. Seeing how everyone is doing as we approach the holidays. As we get ready to get with lots of family. If you have family, maybe you do. Some of us, maybe not so much. Just putting a little dazzle on my face here. But I wanted to talk about red flags to look for. Especially you get around family members, can be tricky. Red flags can also be something to look into when you're dealing with intimate partners, you're dating, you're in serious relationship. Before you get completely hooked to that person, it's really good, important strategy to know and see red flags. I know this is a buzzword. A lot of people use red flag, red flag, red flag. What are red flags? Especially with a history of trauma. When you have history of trauma, red flags can be a little hard to recognize because you're just being conditioned to people please. If you're a people pleaser, a recovering people pleaser, recognizing red flags can be very difficult. And sometimes you might notice a red flag in someone and you might literally be like, is that something to concern about? If you have not been brought up to really know what red flags are, you will easily, you will easily not be able to do anything or ignore it until it's just too late. People get into really dramatic, toxic conflict relationship because of ignoring red flags. As we ease into Thanksgiving holidays, and if you're going to expect family members to come, or you're going to family members and you have CPTSD, you have trauma, small t trauma, big T trauma, you might be feeling anxious to engage with your family members or with your loved ones, with your partner, or if you're dating. It might be good to recognize what red flags look like, or so your red flag detectors can be high in alert. So you're pre-planning going into those engagements, knowing that you might be triggered in that dinner setting. Beyond Thanksgiving, maybe even Christmas holidays, you get together with family. There are family members who might have a lot of red flags or very toxic. Maybe they have their own traumas. They like to maybe poke at you, poke jokes, inappropriate jokes. They might like to, thank you so much everyone for joining me today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're talking about trauma. We're talking about red flags to look for in people, especially around the holidays as we celebrate together. Sometimes those red flags can become an issue if you don't know what red flags look like in people. Let me see. Oh, wow. All right, only nice comments are allowed on this platform. We are healing trauma. We are talking about trauma healing, recognizing red flags. We are talking about healing from trauma. If that's your vibe, then fine, be here. If that's not your vibe, you can move along to a different platform. So maybe this platform does not belong to you. But we only want to be friendly. We were trying to build a community of healing as a collective. So we want to be mindful and kind with our words towards each other because healing is necessary. So some of the ways to recognize red flags is to know that you have CPTSD, you have anxiety, you might have trauma. So somebody who might not be respecting your boundaries. See how I just said that? Very respectfully, very demurely, very mindfully, to this person who's putting this message or comment here. But sometimes people are from different walks of life and they have different experiences. And sometimes when people come at you a certain way, sometimes based on their own experiences, or you set up a boundary, right? You set up a boundary. You say a family member, hey, maybe I can only be at this event at this Thanksgiving, Christmas, or New Year's dinner for an hour, for 2 hours. I can only get there at 4 o'clock. And they're pushing your boundary. They are asking you, why can't you? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Aida. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. I love you too. Thank you for checking me out. We're talking about anxiety towards the holiday time. It's the real thing. You're getting ready to host, or you're going to somebody's home. You can have a lot of anxiety because you don't know who can be there, especially with trauma, history, being traumatized in childhood, or your own experiences around the holidays time with family members, with parents. If your parents were alcoholic, for example, or if you're high toxic, there's a lot of fighting, yelling, screaming, breaking things, instability in the home, or you've had a loved one who's lost loved one around the holidays, you've gone through a separation, a divorce, and now you're maybe trying to host, you're being courageous enough, you're doing it afraid, and then you having people come in your space. All those things can trigger a lot of anxiety, panic, even depression. Financials can be a big issue that cause people with CPTSD or trauma, small t or big T trauma, to feel on edge, feel very easily overwhelmed around the holidays. And when you have to be in the space of people who might be also high conflict, or they have a lot of inks around them, and you kind of have to interact with them, it can be very, very difficult. And in order for you to not completely avoid going into, situations like that, I'm saying this thing to say you can go back with some boundaries. And if you notice people are not respecting your boundary, it's okay to recognize that people are different. People are different from you. I learned this the hard way when I realized that not everybody deals with life, with situations, with socialization, especially with the history of trauma. Socialization is something like I personally had to work myself into mentally, prepare mentally before going in there into a social situation, and also prepare to deflate my center myself in one way or the other after the social interaction, like a holiday party, for example. So you have somebody who is devaluing, demeaning your boundaries, or maybe they know you from childhood, so now they don't respect what you're coming across to be. You're telling them you can only do this or that, you can only bring this or the other dish, and they are being forceful. Hi. Thank you so much for checking me out. Hello from good country of South Africa. Hi, South Africa. Hi, Cape Town. I'm in the East Coast of the United States, but originally from Ghana. And when you're from Africa, hi, you're from South Africa, you're the downside, south side of Africa. From the western side, you know how it is to have trauma from growing up. We really don't talk about emotions or what even trauma means. Truly, for me, learning this has been so healing. Being in the mental health space myself has really been freeing for me to know what it is and be able to set boundaries as a people pleaser. Being raised in a household where boundaries were just never respected, or nobody even knows what boundary is, where there's a hierarchy, the patriarchy takes prominence, where usually where I come from, a lot of men dominate what it looks like, what the holidays look like, what food, how much food, what portion of food everybody gets to have. In the Western world, it can be slightly different in regards to those dynamics, but it can still play because we get really anxious navigating, especially when we have a history of trauma. Keep stressing that. it makes it 1,000 times harder. And if you had losses from childhood and then recent losses on top of that, that's compounded trauma, and you can easily avoid going into social situations. So preparing, knowing that you're going to have those difficulties, knowing that you're going to have to set some boundaries. For example, you have in-laws that are coming. You know those in-laws are difficult. How do you prepare to interact? You have to ahead of time send those messages. Hey, mother-in-law. Hey, father-in-law, this is how the setup is going to be like. It's only going to be 2 hours, so people don't stay there and overstay. Or if you are going to somebody's house for the holidays, telling them, hey, you don't have to tell them all your business because they are not your therapist. You have to go to your therapist to deal with those, nuanced messages. But simple and short, copy and paste to those people ahead of time, saying, hey, I can only stay for an hour and a half. You're only doing that to self-preserve, because you know you can only tolerate setting people in those spaces for only that hour, for only that hour and a half, and making sure you carry through with that. Hi. Thank you so much for checking out my video today. Are you Korean or Jewish? I'm African, and in the United States, I'm a mental health practitioner, and I do a lot of work around trauma healing and bring awareness around trauma and grief and healing, especially as we navigate towards the holidays. This can be very difficult time for a lot of people who are navigating trauma or are navigating losses, and the anxiety, the depression, the panic that can arise from those holidays coming up can be very, very overwhelming. So thank you so much for checking. Put any comments that you might have. Put any questions regarding trauma, regarding anxiety around the holidays, overwhelm around the holiday. Look like, oh, thank you for the compliment. And so what are some of the ways to deal with those type of people when you know that they're not going to respect your boundaries? Knowing that not everybody in the group might respect your boundaries. Not knowing also what boundaries look like, right? Because when you don't know boundaries, when you don't know that you can even set boundaries, that is lacking in how you navigate or do life in general, because then you're going to find yourself being a hermit, avoiding, staying in your little cocoon, and avoidance can lead to loneliness. Not engaging can lead to loneliness, and loneliness is becoming an epidemic in our country, actually worldwide. Loneliness relating to avoidance of social interaction because of trauma, because of history of trauma, is a debilitating subject. It's a debilitating condition that leads to traumatizing depression, insomnia, eating disorders. All types of issues can arise from avoiding interacting with people. But I am here to tell you, although people deal differently than you do, being aware of the fact that you can set boundaries and work on your people pleasing tendencies in order for you to still be able to engage with people is super important. So some of the ways I'm going to reiterate is also looking at people's patterns. So if you know family members, right, they're coming along, you know how their patterns are. You know when they drink, they start to raise their voices higher. You know when they drink, there's likelihood of maybe a fight breaking out. When they drink or eat too much, people start to ask inappropriate questions. That's where you agree to come there for an hour and a half, or 2 hours, whatever your bandwidth can tolerate, and being okay with that. You know that you have the ability to maybe step out into the bathroom, step out to the outside, get some fresh air, so that you are not feeling stuck. But sometimes people will see PTSD, you get frozen in space. You get frozen where you feel like if you get up, you're being rude. If you step outside or you go to the bathroom or something like that, to not to use it, but just to escape, to take a breather, to clear your mind, so you're not feeling like you have to stay there for the whole hour, for the whole 2 hours, without feeling like you just have to escape. So sometimes it's like fight or flight or freeze mode that people get into. So it's so important to prepare your mind, to prepare yourself, to prepare what you're even gonna say, how much you're gonna say. Self-disclosure is so important, right? So sometimes you might be a people pleaser, so people start to ask you questions, and all of a sudden you're on and on and on because you have not prepared yourself mentally to even be there and engage. So all of a sudden you're like spew, you're like you're like you're purging your whole stuff out to them, and now all of a sudden they're asking you inappropriate questions. You're feeling triggered, you're feeling even sad, you're feeling more anxious and panicky, you're sweating, you're tense behind your neck, you're tense behind your shoulders, your tummy start to hurt, because all those symptoms are symptoms of anxiety. You're sweating bullets. Or in order to avoid those symptoms, some people start to drink also themselves, and next thing you know, you are now getting all out of sorts, and or you're blacking out because you're drinking too much. But to avoid all those things, really preparing yourself to get into those situations is super duper the key to fighting your ability to deal in those settings, to deal and enjoy the holidays, enjoy the gathering without getting yourself all twisted up into a pretzel in order for you to be there, or some people in some cases will just completely avoid going. So make sure you have your red flag detector up. Get to know who the people as much as you can, right? Sometimes you don't know the people who are coming. It might be an opportunity to make some good friends or interact with some new friends, new people. But you have to be able to know what red flag detectors look like. If you know their patterns, you know sometimes you watch people how they interact with outside people. Let's say you're doing an event for the holidays in a restaurant. How are those people interacting with like the servers, right? So you notice when they are talking to the servers, they are being very rude or maybe sadly rude. They're asking questions in very abrupt, abrasive ways. But when the manager comes around, they're all of a sudden their demeanor changes. They are being super nice. They're being very polite. They're saying their pleases and thank you. So you're watching it. Sometimes you just have to be quiet enough to watch people's patterns, and then it just gives you a way to know, oh, okay, now I know who you are. You only give some level of respect to people who you think have some capacity of leadership, maybe if you want to put it that way, above you. So you're more apt to be more pleasant. So when you watch somebody like that, let's say you're in a dating situation and somebody is giving you all these red flags, and you sit there, you're quiet, you're watching their patterns, how they're interacting with other people, how they're interacting with the valet person, how they're interacting with, let's say, the person at the grocery shop, how they're interacting with the children, even let's say the kids in the home that you went to for the holidays, and they are like, the kids are being disruptive, if that person is not being kind or loving, or not saying kind and loving things about the children or about the people in the home, or how the home is, or else in this gossiping going around there, but they're being very mean, they are being very demeaning, they are saying very derogatory stuff about the people, the home in which you are invited into. Those are all the signs to tell you the stories of those people, and know that those people are not vibing at your energetic level. So when you notice it, then you start to make your own decisions regarding how long you're going to be there. Some of the ways to prepare yourself before you get into interactions with that would be to take care of yourself. Making sure you're drinking your fluid, drink your water, get good rest. So when you are solid, right, in yourself, at your core, making sure you're eating healthy, wholesome foods. Make sure you are having your protein intake, especially we women. If you're a woman here, I'm saying that. Men too, though. But make sure you have a good protein intake, your muscles. I'm just saying that you might think it's minor, but preparing to go into those interactions with history or trauma and anxiety or socially avoidant person, like myself, a people pleaser, you have to be calculated. You have to plan your trip. You have to plan your interaction. You're dealing with parents who are high conflict, who are manipulative, who are narcissistic or might have narcissistic tendencies. You have to prepare as if you're going to war. You have to be diplomatic, like a diplomat going into a meeting. So you're preparing dates ahead, you're drinking your fluids, you're having your vegetables, you're having your protein, you are exercising, even as much as just taking 10 minutes walk every day. 5 minutes, let's take it let's take it down and not 5 minutes. You're journaling all the anxious thought, the ruminating thought that might be coming to you. You're blurping it. If you're going, instead of going, I remember how I said some people go when you're a people pleaser, all of a sudden because of the pressure, you haven't prepared yourself well to be there, all of a sudden you're just like regurgitating, you're like going on and you're telling your whole life story. This one time I was talking to this lady at my kids sports or something like that, I don't remember. It was just one 5 minutes interaction. I knew her whole life story from head to toe. I'm like, wow, that's a lot too. And everybody there was just listening to her, just like, on. That's somebody who have not put a cap on what she has inside of her. Yes, I get it. Like if you're interacting with friends, it's easy to just like let things out because you feel comfortable, you feel safe. But I'm talking about people who you're not interacting with on the daily, and all of a sudden around the holidays, you are in this place or this space with, or you're meeting new people, all of a sudden you're talking, and next thing you know, you're oversharing, you're telling them your whole life story. But these are some of the keys. You are preparing ahead of those interactions with the holidays. Thanksgiving is going to be first. If you're in the United States, Thanksgiving is this week. And then comes, Christmas after that, and then on and on, the new year, and blah, blah, blah. But preparing yourself to get into those meetings. If you're hosting or you're getting into somebody's home, there's some level of anxiety that can come up. You don't know who's going to be there. You're anxious, maybe you're sweating. You might be have, FOMO. You might be like, I don't know if I'm gonna belong. I don't know if they're gonna accept me. I don't know how if I'm gonna look. There's a lot of insecurities that can come bubbling. Or you have grief. You have lost loved ones. It can be so hard because now you have that grief sitting on your heart. You're hurting. You're emotional, but you know you need that social interaction. How do you prepare yourself to go? So intentionally seeking the support. So besides therapy, as I say all the time. These are some of the stuff, like I'm saying, walking, journaling, at least 5 minutes. Let's say 2 to 5 minutes. Walk 5 to 10 minutes if you can. If you want to take it up a notch, go to the gym, go for a run, go for whatever else, right? You can be like boxing, weightlifting, on and on, different activities like that. Any type of movement gets that inks out because you gotta get that inks out. If you don't get the inks out, it's gonna sit on you and you're gonna ruminate. And then when you get there, you're gonna feel like, "Whoa," or you're gonna feel like you wanna just run away, or you're just gonna sit there frozen. Or the only way you can loosen up is to drink a bunch of liquor or alcohol or wine or beer or whatever in order to loosen up. But what that beer and alcohol is doing to your system is mind-boggling. Now I'm all for, less is more. Life is life. You're adulting, right? If you want to drink, hey, drink. Maybe a glass, but that's where you have to be self-aware enough to know I take 1 or 2 sips and I'm good. But not being able to drink 1 or 2 sips and next thing you know, you're drinking a glass, 2 glasses, a whole bottle, 2 bottles, and you're like, phew. And then next day you regret going to that event or having that gathering all together. So I don't know, maybe if I have a filter on that makes me look like that, I don't know. But thank you for the questions. But I'm not any of those from any of those countries. My apologies if I do have a filter on that makes me look Korean or Jewish. I don't know, but I'm not. I'm African. I'm African American, and this is what I do. Welcome to my live, love. Welcome to my channel. So movement, right? Drinking your water, all those things. Now, another great one, besides sleep and all the stuff that I mentioned, to get your rest, your strength, your core, my every now and then when I get enough money. I get a personal trainer said, you gotta work yourself from the core. You gotta stabilize your core in order for you to be able to engage in other exercises and really making sure your core is stabilized. Your core stabilization will come from what? Getting good rest, getting therapy, getting your movement on, journaling, getting your sunshine. And two strategies today I found: neurofeedback. So there's a bunch of sensors get put on your hands, and you can research it. It's becoming new ways to treat anxiety, people with ruminating thoughts, anxious thoughts. Neurofeedback has been shown to be really, really helpful in healing the brain, the inflammation in the brain that comes along with trauma, with depression. Really, that's changed the chemistry of the brain. Trauma, if you've gone through a really traumatic experience, if you've gone through depression, anxiety chronically, if you have family members or you yourself struggle with alcohol use or really severe mental health debilitating conditions, really finding ways to heal the brain. One of the ways is neurofeedback technique. Look it up. Try to find a therapist who does offer that. I think it's about 4 to 6 sessions, and you're gonna find, truthfully, I find a lot of my clients have a lot of positive things to say about neurofeedback in addition to regular talk therapy. Another one is EMDR, eye desensitization, and eye movement techniques I utilize to center. Like I said, my personal trainer told me that center the core. So EMDR, neurofeedback therapy are all strategies that help center the brain, help heal central nervous system dysregulation. So as you heal, you recognize red flags more. You're not ignoring the red flags. You're not just bulldozing your way through all red flags, and then you're like end up in really toxic relationships or toxic family situations, and you have zero boundaries. Boundaries are for you to protect yourself. So EMDR is really important as well. Neurofeedback is another great way. Meditation, if you're a prayerful person, prayer is another way, really kind of centering yourself around a higher power to help soothe your nervous system, to help know that even when things happen, it's out of your control, there's a higher power that's looking above you, and things do work out. And with that hope in your heart and healing and doing all these tools in your toolbox, imagine the box that you're holding all the tools in it, will help you navigate the holidays and all the shebang and the things that can come in between, whether you're hosting or you're going to a family member or a friend, or you're going out for the holidays. So you're going through it, and once the holiday gets over, you have no regrets. You know that you went to it, you planned it, you served preserves, and you did some of this stuff ahead of the holidays. Thanksgiving is right around the corner. If you can start some therapy, some self-help, TikTok, YouTube, all these places, there's so many therapists, there's so many psychiatrists with channels, coaches, name it, healers who are here. And if you check them out, you're going to get your own self-healing system going. Besides, if you want to reach out to somebody else for support, like a therapist, a coach, a counselor, whatever. But I'm here to say it's possible. You're here to prepare to get into those interactions, so you're dealing in the most utmost holistic way to go through the holidays mindfully, demurely, and with preserving your self-respect, so that you recognize the patterns, recognize the red flags, your red flags alert are on, and you're gonna really deal amazingly through the holidays without having to retreat. Because with CPTSD, the easiest thing we want to do is hide, run away, hide because you feel shame, you feel insecure. But all of these things are possible with some boundaries being set. All right. I'm keeping my live today to 30 minutes, and I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to catch you again hopefully next Monday or the following. But anyways, you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Love you so much. Thank you so much for checking my live out, checking my channel. Subscribe, share, leave me a comment as we do this healing trauma, healing toxic relationships, healing all of it. Bye. You guys have a great one. Love you so much. Bye.